You get to hear a round of applause. You're not going to hear this week on the podcast. The last 2 weeks we've run this on the podcast as well. This is going to be just your own little private preamble with the four of us if you happen to be listening online. So we need to ask a question so that nobody else gets to hear it unless listeners. So let's ask a question of Ripley. Ripley, what brands are you repping this morning? Let's get your report.
D1 Milano on the shirt.
Better.
Yeah, on the jersey here. And then working with the black and red theme, we've got Tudor on the hat.
Tudor, very good, very good. Anybody else got any watch swag stories this week? Swag collected or disposed?
It's a dry summer month.
It's a dry month. David's on swag starvation. Ariel, you're in Austria just now?
Yeah, I don't have any cool Habsburg swag, sorry.
No Habsburg swag. Are you expecting there to be swag? Is this a target-rich environment for swag where you are and what you're doing?
Not watch swag, though I did get to see basically every single luxury watch store here in Vienna just walking around. They have pretty much all of them here. I don't even know if they sell here, but they definitely love the environment. So with the Richemont, Swatch Group, LVMH, they just love I literally was walking around and was like, am I at the Venetian in Las Vegas? Like, I think that's what Vienna was. It was the original Las Vegas here. So we'll see. But
without air conditioning.
Without air conditioning, yeah.
Yeah, are you missing your air conditioning?
Certainly.
Well, okay. Well, let's start recording our actual show. So let's get on with some clapping. So here we go on the count of three. So 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Right, here we go then. Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. Joined, everyone's kind of moved, well, not everyone, actually, it's only Ariel's moved continent. Ariel, what continent are you on right now?
I am on the European continent.
And that means we are in similar time zones. What are you doing in the European continent? What brings you our way? I'm assuming it's not the conclusion of the European Championships.
Didn't know that was happening. We are having an event here July 10th with eBay in Austria to help celebrate part of their European Authenticity Guarantee. David's going to be joining me, so we'll be here with some aBlogtoWatch audience members, local watch enthusiasts and collectors, of course, the eBay Europe team. Really gorgeous city, so fantastic to do an event here, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. So by the time some of you hear this, the event will happen, and look forward to a recap on the website.
Cool. And that means you've done some international travel. So any aBlogtoWatch watching watches on your aircraft flights? What in-flight entertainment caught your attention?
I literally just saw recently released Japanese anime movies, which are mostly romantic movies. I mean, there's always a watch thing here and there. In Japanese cartoons, there's always some watch-related thing. But I wouldn't say that there was any live action stuff I saw that had a watch in there. I'll keep looking though.
You keep looking on the way back. David, how are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
It felt like you had to think about that for a moment as to whether you were well. There was some consideration going. Yeah, you might actually no. Actually, you know what?
It's not me.
I'm not.
It's my internet. I just had to switch Wi-Fi and something, and I actually responded immediately. And somehow the internet was like, "No, let's think about that for a second." So this morning, it's not me.
The internet was considering if it thought you were okay.
I bought these TP-Link stuff, and it just started blinking red months ago. And sometimes it stops. I reset it. I reinstall it, and it's just bad.
You see,
shame on you, TP-Link.
I've got we've all had experience of motor vehicles, etc. Occasionally it's a wee red light that flashes, and it's just that the red light's broken. There's nothing.
That's so rare, though. It's never just the light. That's so. You want it to be it's the sensor which is screwed up. It's so rare.
It's just the light. It's just the light. It's not actually a problem. It's just the light.
It's the entire rear end of the car, all of it.
Have you ever been an Uber with a driver that doesn't care so much about that, and the whole dashboard's got a bunch of lights, and you want to know how long has this been going on?
Forever.
It's I'm sorry, it's New York taxi cabs. Now, I have never had a good experience in a yellow cab. I've always felt like the person doesn't care who's driving if they live and die, and they don't seem to care if I live and die either. I've
That's
never.
part of the sport, you know.
It does feel. It does feel like what's that? I've only maybe played it once. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a car game where everyone's crashing.
There's Carmageddon, Twisted Metal. I mean, and the list goes on. Are you
Whatever
thinking
it's called.
Carmageddon, sir?
I don't know.
Or there's
I
the
don't know.
taxi one, Crazy Taxi. That was
Is it
one.
Crazy Taxi, but it
There's
just
Crazy
feels
Taxi.
like
Destruction Derby.
it's
Well-
when your taxi gets air. That's always
It
it's
gets
as many things
airtime.
have
Oh,
like
okay.
long traveling suspension. It hits a pothole in New York at 60 miles an hour, and you can actually feel the whole car lifting off the ground.
You're not even
But-
allowed to go that fast in New York. There's so much
No.
traffic, but I know what you're saying.
Well, I actually, the last yellow cab I was in, I had to hold the door shut and hold the seatbelt across my body. It was incapable of being plugged in, and the door wasn't working properly. So I don't know. It didn't
But what
feel
bothers
exactly
you more, that
safe.
It's
or
in
when
New
the
York.
when the driver is just not in a rush to go anywhere, and you're like, oh my god, I have to be somewhere. Why are you spending time looking at the map before you move this vehicle?
We see the thing is, if I'm in New York, I'm on holiday, so time is a social construct at that point. I'm not in a rush for anything. Ripley.
Well, it's a New
Unrushed
York
holiday
roller
in New York.
coaster. It's a New York roller coaster.
New
And
York
the
roller
part
coaster.
of the fun of it is you don't know if you're going to get a really boring one or a fast one. So, I'm with Ariel. I'd much rather have them be in a hurry and drive with a sense of urgency rather than drive up the fare as we just perpetually hit every single traffic light going on one of the avenues.
Life would be simpler if Americans learned about roundabouts. I feel that's just always my you don't need traffic lights at every junction. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about watches. So let's start off with some of Ariel's thoughts. What happens when wristwatch prices normalize downward? The great shakeout is continuing in the world of watch prices. Gentlemen, first of all, before Ariel, you give us this. What's the feeling in the various marketplaces you're in? Ripley, what's the feeling in your part of the world? Does it feel
Well-
like a depressed market?
A depressed market, I don't know. We're coming up to election times this year, which always kind of people get a little bit hesitant to, splurge on things with all the uncertainty and whatnot. But this correction has been coming for a long time. Things were crazy inflated due to COVID and a lot of people entering the kind of dealer side of the hobby because they thought they could either make money quickly and easily or because they thought it was a fun way to participate in the hobby or something, or because they were really just interested in it because of the monetary value of the objects and the rapid appreciation. But, all of that created inflated prices. I think Rolex is just the quintessential example. The brand openly says that every year they're trying to make more watches, and they do, than the year before. They already make 1.2, 1.3 million watches per year. They all sell because they're that desirable. But the fact of the matter is that none of these watches that they sell should be worth 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x their original retail prices on the secondary market when those same watches are still being sold today by Rolex and retailers. So it's been a long time coming of a correction. A depressed market, I mean, sure, but at the same time, we're just kind of coming back to reality a bit, in my opinion.
David, your part of Europe, has reality setting in, or local conditions different?
I think it's been setting in. Yeah. With watches, with cars, with everything, it's becoming a buyer's market real quick. I think you can bargain for better discounts or better prices. The whole thing is just stuck a little bit. It's just real estate that's doing a-okay, but not even that. So it's a tricky place to be right now if you want to sell something expensive and nice that you bought expensively a couple of years ago.
And as Ariel talked about his article that you couldn't afford in the first place. So Ariel, do tell us the thoughts. Give us a summary of what you are trying to communicate in this article.
Thank you. A little bit of context first. One of the things is that I write these essays to discuss how changes in the market will affect various aspects of the market. So there's a lot of changes are constantly happening. It's very transitional, and people don't always think about what I'll call the downstream effects. And what we've had over the last several years, for a lot of strange factors, is a speculative investment market coming into the watch space, buying watches not as luxury items to wear and enjoy, but as something to buy now and sell later at a higher price. A key part of this article is what I call the downward normalization. It isn't that watch prices are going down; they're just sort of returning to where I think they historically need to be in terms of sort of supply and demand, and the fact that a used watch costs less than a brand new watch and things like that. And so in this article, I ask, well, now that prices are normalizing downward, what is going to happen to various key players, be them brands, especially some of the resellers that engage in a lot of this activity, and of course consumers. And there are going to definitely be losers. There's a lot of retailers out there that were set up on the entire premise that they'll buy a watch that they can sell at a higher price than what they purchased it for, which again is common supply and demand economics. But we're talking about buying a watch at retail price or over retail price, and then assuming that you're going to sell it even more. This was highly unsustainable behavior, and I think one of the reasons I had to write this article is that for years and years, 5 or 6 years, a lot of articles out there have been talking about the watches to invest in and what's the next one to get and what's moving up, and basically all this type of like quasi investment entertainment media that I think did a lot of harm. And this is sort of to rebut that, to combat that, because there's been so much media on the other side, and we have to have the sober conversation. There's a lot of upsides. Consumers win 100% here. I don't think consumers win when they get a chance to buy a watch at retail and then can flip to someone else for more later. I don't know how that is a win for consumers. What is a win for consumers is feeling good about yourself, not having to jump through hoops to buy something, getting a discount often, and again, the idea that your used watches are going to cost less than your brand new watches and things like that. So we talk about a lot of the businesses that were set up to sell over retail and how they're going to go away, and a lot of them already have. And you can see how leveraged so many of the big retailers were on selling those Rolexes and things like that. And now without that volume, they're like, oh no, what do we do? And the funny thing is a lot of these retailers have to now return to a world where they need to convince people to buy watches again. They can't just sit there as a point of sale and be like, come on in and get your, buy your fresh investments. Here they are. Your investments are here. Get them while they're hot. That's a ridiculous concept. It's more or less entirely gone away. But again, this media is there to continue to rebut the huge amounts of articles. I'd like your guys' opinion out there on how many articles you've seen, even in like relatively respected financial publications, that tout watches as investments, even though we all know that was risky, unsustainable, probably unethical and unwise behavior to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the media's got to take... Well, I think this is entirely a media-generated thing. I don't think the watch brands and even the online retailers of used watches could have generated what happened if it hadn't been for everybody on YouTube, on podcasts, on online forums and blogs and watch media that used to be critical of things, but now just sticks its head in the sand and wants to make money by doing anything other than actually, talking about watches. I think if those areas hadn't piled in, this would simply never have happened. I don't think it was feasible to create this without the media taking, deciding, yeah, let's ride this train as well, because if watch prices are building as investments, then more people are coming to look at what we're writing about. It just creates an unholy supply chain, which when it falls off, not only do the watch brands not have the ready-made customers that they've always had, and these ADs need to learn how to sell watches again, need to learn how to phone up their book of customers and pitch a new watch to somebody, but also the watch blogs need to learn how to write about watches as opposed to just writing about the latest and greatest auction, or that you need to go away and learn about stuff. So I think you're seeing that how many sites are struggling, how many online retailers are struggling. So
I
think it
mean,
was
the
inevitable.
fact that so much media was just based upon getting people excited about the next watch auction or whatever,
Yeah.
I've just never understood the appeal in it. I mean, I guess there's an audience for that out there, but it doesn't help you appreciate timepieces. It doesn't help you actually learn what's going on or know what's new. I remember a couple of years ago, I was speaking to some watchmakers who were being kind of romanced by these auction houses. And what the auction houses were trying to get them to do is take their brand new watches and put them straight to auction. Like, not even sell them through retail, just put them straight to auction. And a lot of watchmakers didn't sort of see the long term detriment here and got excited about it. And some even did. I don't want to name any names out there, but there's a lot of watches that you'll see that were sold brand new at auction. And I'm not talking about one of a kind things like Only Watch. I'm talking about like just, the first one off the production. Let's just send it straight to auction. And that to me was just a distortion of what the market needs to be. And it became so much more about hype. It became so much more about artificial exclusivity. It became so much more about this fear of missing out, which I think, as we've tried to discuss in this show, is really not what any of us get excited about watches. It just has nothing to do with what appeals to us. And so not just only do we not cover the industry that way, we have an obligation, and this is because the aBlogtoWatch team and audience has said, Ariel, you need to write about this, but to correct all these, I don't want to call them mistakes, but I'll call them false directions that will send you down a hobby that isn't fun or fulfilling, not like what we're advocating for.
I think one of the bits in the article that was particularly interesting was relating to the fact that watch brands continue to put their prices up. Like, the prices keep going up, and it becomes ever more unjustifiable.
Got another article on that coming.
And it becomes ever more unjustifiable, because the way it was justified before is, we can keep putting these prices up because you'll still be able to sell it for more than what you paid for, or close to, or whatever it'll be. But now what it's doing is it's letting people in underneath those price barriers, because everybody knows that the cost of production has not gone through the roof in relation to the cost increases that these watch brands are pushing out to the market.
I saw something very similar in the early 2000s, ending abruptly in 2013, I believe, where people were doing this in China, right? Watches were selling in China. A lot of them were being purchased with public money. It's essentially purchases bribes, and part of the value of the bribe was the value of the thing purchased. And so brands are like, wait a minute, if we just keep increasing the prices of our watches and doing nothing else, it'll make better bribes. And because public money is being used for it, there's less price sensitivity. It's more about how impressive the bribe is. And so you saw just like prices just shooting up. And then all of a sudden, the Chinese government just ended that practice. Xi Jinping was that's one of the things he did earlier on, was just be like, no more public money used for bribes and grafting or gifting, as they called it. And it wasn't just watch, it was all kinds of goods. And that just decimated that. And brands almost had to restart themselves. They couldn't just take the same products and lower the price. They had to discontinue them and come out with brand new products and finagle a lot of things. Yeah. And so again, I have another article coming out soon, which not only discusses that, but challenges the overall wisdom that watch brands should keep raising their prices. And there is, in luxury textbooks, this mantra that came from a very small amount of research. It says, if you want to be a successful luxury brand like Rolex and Louis Vuitton, you need to consistently raise your prices all the time on a schedule. And everyone's like, that sounds like a great idea. Well, I'll do that. And I heavily attack the validity of that concept and the wisdom of it. So I think this is part of a larger conversation and a new element of watch industry culture, which hasn't really been talked about in the last 5 to 10 years, which is you can't just keep raising prices and alienating customers, hoping that there's a dumber, richer group of people out there willing to buy.
Always.
David, you come across any good, dumb, richer people recently?
Yeah, all you have to do is go to eBay or Chrono24 and look at watches. It's been a fun ride putting some of these on my notepad or save listings or whatever and just see what happens. And a lot of watches just tanked big time, tens of thousands of dollars gone. And, it's different to lose tens of thousands on a $500,000 watch and different on a $100,000 watch or a $90,000 watch. And, when we were scratching our heads, I remember recording previous episodes a year ago or more, and we were just scratching our heads and thinking like, who's buying this or that for that amount of money? $40, $50, $60,000 gold Rolex is selling for 150,000. Where do you go from there? The only way to go is down. So it was so blatantly obvious. But I guess some people have made a lot of money on this musical chairs game, and some can survive the fact that they are without a seat now that the music has stopped, and some will go under because it's just been a bad ride in a way. They've been just trying to arbitrage the crap out of this, on the way to the top. But the top was really high, and there's a long way to go from there. So, and we are seeing that right now, and there's just so much made up money going down the drain. And sometimes I see people walking on the street, and I see them wearing a watch, and I think to myself, did he buy that for 25,000 or 55? And it's crazy to think that someone might be wearing a $25,000 depreciation right there within a year. Why would you want to spend or lose 25,000, or in a way pay a $25,000 premium to wear a watch for a year, or just wait for a year and buy it now for 25K less? And that's just one example. So it's everywhere, all around us. If you open your eyes and look out for it.
And yet we still see, online retailers announcing the latest celebrity investor to come along to support their brand. It just all
Invest in
seems
what?
like so much codswallop. Is codswallop a word that's
When you
understood in
see
America?
that is classic BS. Okay, the idea is like, here's someone with a lot of money. They decided to put their money with us. Won't you as well? Classic BS.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Ripley, where do you see this going?
I mean, at a certain
Is
point,
it likely to happen again? Like, is this
I,
it? Is this your tulip lesson on, or
I mean, everything goes in cycles in terms of popularity. I think COVID added a special layer to this that I don't foresee being replicated in quite the same way. But I think the people who got into it, not for any reason because they liked watches, but because they thought they could make money, or it was the cool thing to do because other people were doing it and making a lot of money. But the people who are in it for financial reasons or optics will eventually trickle out and go on to the next thing. Whether that be Bitcoin or sneakers or bicycles or whatever. And then at a certain point, it'll be back to a more realistic looking landscape where, like Ariel said, used watches sell for less than new watches, and you should be able to go into brands and get what you want in a reasonable amount of time. And as David mentioned, no one is wearing a $25,000 depreciation on their wrist simply because they wanted to get it right then and there, So snap back to reality, in other words,
yeah. Well, let's leave this topic. I'm sure it'll be revisited again, probably even in this show when we look at the watches we're about to talk about. First up, and it's going to be a bit of a blue watch theme for a wee moment or two. We have this from Tudor, the Tudor black base ceramic blue watch. Very pretty watch. Formula One was the British Grand Prix this weekend. It's been quite a busy weekend in Britain. Wimbledon, an election. Our election went quite well. Do you think your election will go quite well, Ripley, Ariel? Are you expecting good things over there?
Uh,
Anyway, enough of that. This is from Tudor. Ripley, you reviewed this or wrote it up based on what Tudor were telling you. What do we think?
Well, their press images on the newsroom were incredibly small for all the lifestyle ones, but this is a watch we've kind of known about for a while. Tudor's done a couple different team exclusive versions of the black base ceramic for the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls Formula One team, better known as VCARB. So this previously
Is it better known as that?
it's definitely better known as that for a
Has it
multitude of reasons. So anyway, this was supposed to be like the team exclusive watch. You'd see it on the wrists of their drivers. And now Tudor has sort of opened it up to the public and made it a standard production offering. Interestingly enough, nothing about the watch or even the name of the watch has anything alluding to Formula One or the previously mentioned Visa Cash App, our Racing Bulls Formula One team itself, which is kind of interesting. And I think kind of this watch could have very much existed without any type of Formula One tie-in. And given that Tudor has a long history of making both blue and black versions of watches, this would have totally made sense considering the other version is black. The fact that they kind of made this Formula One tie-in thing without any type of branding seems slightly tenuous. And it's also a bit strange that we've got Formula One, apex of motorsport, and the guys are wearing like a vintage-inspired dive watch. But, that's neither here nor there.
Well, I'm not sure it is neither here nor there. Why?
It's stupid is what it is.
From a commercial perspective, it makes sense. From a commercial perspective, it makes sense. Without a doubt, the black base Tudor's single most recognizable, famous, popular, whatever collection. So obviously, with this partnership, dress the brand, the drivers, the public-facing figures in the watches, the thematic version of the brand's most recognizable model. All of that makes sense. In terms of a thematic connection to the sport, unless the depth rating is to just survive the crushing weight of the points for how far they are down in the standings right now, I don't foresee that being any, any real connection to diving or anything to do with a 1950s dive watch.
Yes, but it is stupid, as David says. Tudor do make chronographs. That would seem slightly more
And they use
logical.
carbon fiber too, like a carbon fiber chronograph like we saw in the cycling watch would make tons of sense. But here we are with the blue ceramic watch.
Yeah. I can make sense of it by saying that not everything has to be a chronograph. I mean, some folks out there like Formula One and like a Black Bay, and now they can like the two things in the same place for some reason. One thing I really don't like about this, though, is that Tudor teased this to the world by saying, "Oh, these are like exclusive pieces, just two made for the team," or something like that. And I like to believe brands. As weird as that sounds, as naive as that sounds after all these years, I still like to read something and have this little voice in me not start screaming and say, "It's a lie, it's all bullshit." I want to believe them. And yet here we are a month later. Oh, now you can buy the thing that we said that it's only for the team. Why would you do that, Tudor? I mean, it's such a mushroom brand. It's not even a mushroom brand kind of move. It's just so weird. Why would you do that? Just say, "Oh, sooner or later you will be able to get it," or not say anything at all. Why would you say, "Oh, it's only these two pieces. Now you want one. Now we're graciously offering it to the world now." Jeez.
I'm just wondering where the blue ceramic is.
Blue what?
The blue ceramic.
Over at Hublot and Omega, I guess.
Yeah, I was like, oh, blue ceramic. Like, why does it say blue? I mean, I guess the black is in there as well, but the name itself leaves you many questions of what the final timepiece is even going to look like.
Yeah. It's called ceramic blue. It's literally the name of it, ceramic blue.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I hadn't read it like that, but yes, you're right. It's a black ceramic watch. The ceramic is black. It is not a ceramic blue watch, unless the dial's made of ceramic, but I'm guessing it's not. David, it feels like that's something that's just been heavy on your heart, and
I have to go to therapy now.
No. Consider this your therapy. Consider this. You're in your safe space.
Thank you.
With friends.
It works.
This does represent.
You suddenly, I can feel how much your countenance has risen. It barely
it's better now.
Just to respond to David's stress level, this does represent Tudor somewhat trying new things. Obviously, there's some growth pains here, but Tudor is trying to distinguish itself from Rolex's relatively rigid kind of release cycle. Admittedly, they're not doing everything right. They're announcing things in a strange way, but it seems to be that there's some fresh thinking there going on. It's creeping in the direction of, oh, they could do really cool stuff. So I like that they're doing that, but they'll learn hard that you can't just say something is not going to be available for sale and then it is. Other brands have definitely done that and got chewed out for it. I still think they're thinking like, oh, wouldn't this be amazing? No one thought they could get it. Remember, they had the kind of pinkish lavender dial Black Bay chronograph that, again, had a similar level of like, oh, I want one, I'm not sure. And they like that. They like the kind of speculation out there. Yes, there's a lot of like moral and ethical elements there that they need to not breach, but this is, in my opinion, Tudor playing in some new territory that they're not yet familiar with yet, and I guess that's a good thing.
Okay, so I went back to look at these posts, and they had a rainbow colored dial, not a blue one.
So the
Uh,
rainbow
n-
one for the Miami
9 weeks
Grand
ago.
Prix. Yeah,
Okay.
the rainbow one was, I think, for the Miami Grand Prix to match their very colorful car livery. The blue one, it was I don't know if it was a team exclusive, but is that actually a bad thing in this instance? I think it's poor taste when a brand says like this limited edition, we're only making 10 of them. People rush to buy them, and then they're like, just kidding, now you can all buy one. Or it's to like, surrounding an auction piece or something. But think about Only Watch. It's standard practice for a lot of those brands to like debut a new model at Only Watch. Someone pays a absolute shed load of cash for it, and then lo and behold, 3-4 months later, we get a slightly less interesting version, as a standard production limited edition type
Yeah.
of model. So I think that's kind of standard practice. And at the end of the day, if Tudor was originally like, you can't buy this, this is only for the V-Carb racing team, and then they're like, just kidding, you can now buy one, that's ultimately a positive for anyone who actually wanted one of these things. It wasn't like any of the consumers are put out for it by their lie, if there was a lie surrounding it.
But it's a different watch because now my memory now is like refreshed, and it was
Well,
a rainbow mishmash dial that they only made two of, and now they say, oh, you still can't have that, but you can have this in blue. Do you want it? So that's now the message that that was a truly exclusive one. So I will have to um rectify whatever I said, but I'm still mad.
did,
It's, you know,
did they ever
because
say
the
anything
whole thing
about
is
this
still
one?
weird. Hmm?
Did they ever say anything about this one? This one's been kind of teased around for, I feel like, the multitude of races by this point.
Yeah, it's just blue. I like the movement and I like the color scheme. The whole thing still doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Meta certified, yes.
That's cool.
Woo.
And cool looking movement. I mean, the decoration is nice. I like this deep blue color, but there's a picture of the watch with the steering wheel behind it, and the steering wheel has all these various colors on it. Just how the ultra limited piece, the two that they launched for not launched, but they gave the drivers. So why not just give people that? I still don't understand. Somehow I feel like Twitter still is like playing with the minds of people here and just dragging them out.
They're just playing with you, David. They've got you in their sights. They're
It's a
just
5,000 euro watch. Stop it. Just give it. Just let me buy it. It's not a quadruple minute repeater, perpetual chronograph assembled by angels. Just paint the dial the same thing that you painted for the guys and let me buy it. Easy. Is that too
Okay,
much to ask for?
I think it's time to take a time out. I think it's time to take a time out and move on for David.
Yes.
David
Before my
crashes.
head explodes. Yes.
Before your head explodes. Well, maybe this would have been a more suitable watch for a Formula One team, it being a chronograph. Brellam Pan. Okay, I was reading this as Panda Dial. Pandial. What's a Pandial when it's home? Pandial Marina Bicompact Titanium Chronometer Watch. Ripley, is this the watch that you were wearing recently?
I was briefly
No?
wearing it. It was
Comment
a
someone?
quick stop and go through my rotation, so I could photograph it and write it up here. Um, the pan dial is like Brellam's sports chronograph. It comes in a variety of different configurations. The brand's super tiny. It's fourth generation watchmaker, kind of a very much a premium micro brand. Their total
Mm.
output for the year is just 299 watches. So while they do have standard production models, a solid chunk of their annual output consists of these small batch, like double digit limited editions. This one's 46 pieces. A couple of the others I've reviewed in the past have been like 23 or 35 or something like that. This is now a titanium version of the pan dial, but this isn't just like a material difference. They all use sort of different movements. So this is a bi-compacts layout with a date. Some will have a tri-compacts day date. Some will have a moon phase, so they're kind of power reserve. So this is kind of the latest one, very sporty, grade 5 titanium. Everything they make is chronometer certified, which is pretty cool. And it's like a very premium kind of small brand boutique watch. Solid value for the money, pretty big case proportions, but
Mm.
it does mitigate what is objectively a rather thick on paper case dimension.
Yeah, this is an unusual brand. I've never quite understood how they get this to work because they say they produce about 300 watches a year, and they sell for $3,000-4,000. They're not expensive in the grand scheme of things. So my question is, what else are they doing to keep themselves? It just doesn't feel like doesn't feel like a business. We produce.
I'm gonna jump in here. So I know Brellam as well, and I
Uh-huh.
started covering them on the website when they were brand new. This is sort of a what I call the pre-micro brand generation
Mm-hmm.
of brands. Their entire idea is that there's all these events out there, such as Basel World, which is a place that Brellam would go. And they would sort of ride on to these big events, and they could keep costs down by simply showing up to enough watch shows, meeting with media and consumers, and they believe that they could sell enough watches that way. There's a very strong limit as to what they can do in terms of business with that model, but it's entirely reliant on riding on the coattails of other events. As you can see in the United States, a lot of the micro brands have identified that by banding together, they can have their own events and not have to go to the Basel Worlds, which again don't exist anymore, or the Watches and Wonders, where there can never really be space. There's sort of like the wind-up shows and Intersect, and lots of new ones starting in the U.S., which is great, where micro brands can pool their resources and attract consumers at the same time. So the Brellums of the world are sort of set up for that, but on their own, in a vacuum, if they had to try to create value proposition, they had to convince people, it'll be very, very difficult. So there needs to be a larger mobile and active community for companies like this to be able to persist. And it really depends on them staying very, very small, having a good relationship with the supplier, meaning this companies that can make their cases, make their dials and things like that. So being in Europe obviously is a crucial part of making that a reality.
David, experience with Brell?
None at all, to be honest. It's always been somebody else on the team going hands-on with them, so I have extremely limited, basically no experience with them. But it's a great-looking watch. Nice pictures for clear. I think it's like it really shows of the complexity of the case. I'm getting used to seeing way simpler cases for twice this much. So 3,500 is a big chunk of money, but you do get a very complicated case, nice-looking movement. So it looks like something that has had a lot of effort go into it.
It does feel like a bit of a throwback, this kind of watch for that kind of price. This feels like 5 years ago when these kind of chronographs with these kind of movements were, still felt a little bit expensive, maybe for what they were, but you could kind of say, oh, $3,500. Yeah, okay, fair enough. If you really like it, go for it. So many other brands are producing watches that are still a bit like this, and add another 1,000, another 2,000, another $3,000,
or 8,000, retail for like the in-house movements. I always kind of from like a overall just sort of product standpoint, it kind of reminds me of like older Breitling, not in terms of aesthetics, but it's a large chronograph, Valjoux movement, chronometer certified, very well executed, lots of attention to detail, big, bold, well done, but again, less expensive than old Breitling, even still back then. And now we're talking about like $8,000 for a top time. So they're in a totally different segment. But I like the products, ultimately. Next time they reach out, David, you should go hands on. They're closer to you than me in terms of shipping it. So
Right.
you should, you should get a chance to see them. They're cool. And like, let's be real with the production. This is 46. I think another was like 23. They're such small batch examples. Rarely are you going to encounter one in the wild, let alone the same one you've probably seen before. So they're they're a cool brand in my opinion.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Well, a brand that you maybe do encounter a bit more in the wild, but I don't think you encounter them as dress watches very much in the wild. Our final blue watch before we move on to Hitmas maybe is Zelos Nova 37mm dress watch. Now immediately I'm like 37mm, not interested in covering, but this looks quite pretty, and pretty in a kind of unisex pretty way. Ripley, again, this looks like your wrist it's on. I feel I know your wrist better than I know my own now.
Someone commented and saying they wish we had shot it on a man's wrist, and I'm just like, God, I guess that
Kick
hurts
a guy
me.
when he's down.
Yeah, it is my wrist. Look at my face. I can't grow much hair. It's a really cool watch. This is the, I believe, second iteration of the Nova. It's their
Mhm.
lineup of dress watches. They primarily make divers, and that's kind of what they're best known
Yeah.
for, divers and sports watches. Very thin case, ETA movement. All the dials are cool. You can either get guilloche, the Mosaic Mother of Pearl, which is the one reviewed here, a blue aventurine, or their limited edition version features a tantalum rather than stainless steel case, and it gets a meteorite and aventurine kind of two-tone dial. The cool part is the price. All over, very nice package. Interesting dials, not flagrant branding. Nice and thin, good proportions. But they start out at under $800, and then
Mhm.
they top out at under, I think, like, what was that? Under $2,000 for the tantalum version. So very
Yeah.
affordable. Swiss movements. If you're looking for a dress watch and don't have wrists like yours, Rick, it's probably the right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, this just seems like absolute bang for the buck. Bear in mind what we've been talking about. This feels like a brand that when everyone else has been getting carried away in their prices, they're just like, nope, we can produce good watches at around $1,000, sell sheds loads of them, and we'll just stick to that, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Uh,
I want that Mosaic MOP dial, and it's also a fun reference. Chevy made a car called Nova, and the problem
mhm.
was that in Spanish speaking countries or markets, it means it doesn't go. So they made a car that was literally called "Doesn't Go,"
The
and
no go.
the no go, yeah, the no go car. And so this would just remind me of that. So that's cool. And it's $800. I mean, you get the whole thing, hand one movement on
Yeah, it's
display,
cool.
and this Mosaic MOP dial. Wow, I would pay 800 just for the dial.
Yeah.
This is what we like about micro brands. Zelos is maybe not as micro or startup as they once were, but this is really in the vein of what they do. They choose something which is trendy and how to do it in a relatively efficient way. Look, the movement, the strap, and the case of this watch is basic, basic, basic.
Mm.
Not in a bad way, but again, there's not a lot of high costs there. That's sort of a Peugeot, manually wound. It's just about as simple as it gets. So really, the money is in the dials, and that's where most of the value is. And this reflects what the price sort of needs to be for something like that. They're still making money at it, but I think it's important to understand that there's not some huge surprise. It's about finding that supplier that can do these dials and then building a product around it. And that's where a lot of these brands find sort of the reason for finding interest in a watch. It's usually that one thing, like, oh, tantalum, oh, look at that dial. So it's not this all these different things, but they sort of create a product around one hero material or element. And that's what you're seeing here, and the result can be very, very satisfying. But
Mm.
again, the prices don't really need to be more than this.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. Love it. I've never actually tried on a Zelos, but every time I've spoken to somebody that either owns one, reviewed one, or tried one on, they always speak very, very highly of them.
They
So
always
yeah,
seem to deliver good value and quality for the money. I'm wondering if any of you know how a Mosaic Mother of Pearl dial is made. Obviously, on the high end, we've got some man in the Swiss mountains placing them together under candlelight, but on the low end side like this, I don't know what crazy machine could possibly do that in like an automated process.
I mean, I'm assuming it's put together it's put together then sliced, like you stack the little things, the little edges together like a sausage, and then you just under pressure slice it to get you that, as opposed to somebody marketing using marquetry to, you know,
Like a
like all
sausage?
douse. Aye, so I assume it's like little. I don't know. I've never seen it. I'm making up. You've challenged me with an industrial process. I'm thinking, how would I do this
Reverse
as cheaply
engineering
as
it.
possible? Reverse engineering it. I would imagine you take the little cubes of mother of pearl and
Mm-hmm.
you make the thing. You stick them all together, but it's stacked quite high, and then all you're doing for the dial is taking a slice off the top, and you just keep going to make all your dials, rather than each dial being made individually.
But
It's got to
the
be
mother
mass
of pearl,
manufacture.
mother of pearl's so thin, it's the layer of the shell. I don't know how you could be working with like inches of the stuff.
I mean, is it like reconstituted mother of pearl in the way that you would reconstitute sausages? You know, you just mix it all
Back to the
together. I
sausages
don't
here. I
know.
don't,
I don't,
I don't know if
It's
this
like the
is the most.
sausage.
I'm the one in
I'm
Vienna.
Yes.
That's true. Well, I'll tell you what, during Hit Miss, maybe I see Rob Nuds is tuned in. Maybe he will know how this is done. So let's move on. And we'll have that as the first question as we move on to Hit Miss, maybe. So let's get some people in, see who's there, and hopefully they remember that we are live on. Oh, blimey, there is a growth under your nose, Mr. Nuds. What's going on? It's not November.
It just happens.
It just happens. Just happens. This is not a I'm not going to shave while England are still in the European Championships type thing. No,
No, it's just testosterone.
just testosterone. Just loaded with testosterone. It's got to get out somehow. It's either this or football violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob is on a nicely slow connection for live on YouTube, which is good. Now, I believe Alon should be along, but I don't see him yet. So while we're waiting to see if he appears or not, Rob, we have a technical question for you. This will test your watchmaking skills. We want to know, how do you make a mother of pearl dial like that for 800 quid? Talk us through the process of. I reckon it's something to do with.
Well, I have no idea.
sausages.
I've never seen that watch
No
before. It looks like marquetry from here, but is it different pieces or is it
It
one
is
piece?
when I-
That's been...
It is. I looped it because I figured maybe it was just like almost like a veneer that had the layer on it or something like that, or there was some workaround. But they do seem to be little pieces. You can almost see the imperfections where some of the angles don't perfectly line up, and there's almost a tiny gap.
I mean, it looks incredible considering how tightly packed everything is, but I assume it's just marquetry.
And how can you be doing that for 800 quid? I mean, the rest of it costs you something. That does seem extraordinarily cheap if each bit there is being individually hand put into that watch.
Let's hope it's all legal labor.
Yes, let's hope so. Let's not go casting aspersions just now. Yeah, that does seem an extraordinary piece of work. Right, well, I don't see Alon joining us, so we will make a start. We are going to review 3 quite different watches. So I've not told anybody what they are yet. So, well, let's start with this, one of the most commented on watches of the week. And when you get a Breguet that's top of the charts in terms of commentary, you need to review it. You need to give it the hit miss maybe treatment. This is the Breguet Classic Double Tourbillon Quai de l'Orgie, reference 5345. I'm not sure what to make of this, and I'm not going to reveal the price yet in case you've not already seen it. So from
Or in
all
case you can't tell from looking at it that it's a lot.
Yeah, and there's certain aspects of this which, yes, you can see are clearly a lot. And then, we'll maybe get on to some of the other things. But first, it's tourbillons, it's a classic Breguet, it's completely illegible, it's really expensive, but has some very nice artwork on it. So from that point of view, and only that knowledge, would this be a hit, a miss, or a maybe for you, gentlemen? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, hit. Oh, right, so I'm the only one that's saying it's a miss, right? Everybody else is saying it's a hit. Okay, Ripley, tell me why I'm wrong. Why is this a hit?
Well, I mean, it's a hit for all of the obvious reasons. Rick, why is it a miss?
Okay, why is it a miss? Very obviously, if I scroll down on this article, let's see how long the article is. It's quite a long article. Lots of very nice pictures. If I scroll all the way to the bottom and see that it is $735,100, that $100 is important because when I scroll up and look at the strap that they've put this watch on, which appears to be a rubber strap with Breguet printed on it, like a knockoff Panerai or Breitling, I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? Well, first of all, I'm thinking, why is Guy not on this particular hit miss? Maybe because I'm sure he'd have something to say about this. This just, it was like going so well, and then at the last minute, somebody completely ruined this watch by putting it on just the most ridiculous strap, and that's why it's a miss. It's just so close, so near, and yet so far. So there you go. That's my thoughts. Ripley, why is that wrong? Just
Well,
cause?
I mean, the straps are removable. That's like not liking a person because of the shoes they're wearing that day. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you went into the Breguet boutique and said, I'm going to be buying this watch in full, I don't really love the strap, I'm sure they would outfit it in probably any compatible thing of your choosing that they had on hand.
I shouldn't have to do the work. If I'm paying 700 grand for a watch,
No,
I
it's part of
shouldn't
the
have to put
pomp and
any effort in.
circumstance. What if it's part of the thing? So you're going to have to go to the boutique and interact with them and drink the cappuccino and like all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you got to go through with all of it. They want to court you in this process. They want you to personalize it. Maybe they
so
put
it's
the
a
horrid.
test.
Yes, they put the
It's
horrid
bad,
strap
so you
on.
do more to it.
Yes, exactly.
It's a test. So what they're doing is they're going to sell me this watch, but only if after just about going there and saying, wait a minute, if I go, right, yes, I'll take it. They go, no, you can't take it. You're not classy
It's a
enough
power move.
because you didn't spot that you should be asking for this to come in a different strap.
It's a
But
power
so long
move.
as- It's a power move.
They don't want to sell this to someone who's bowing down to the brand. They want someone who's buying this who
Critique.
commands the brand. This is
right. Okay.
yeah. This is you can take it off and put on some other crocodile something. Or the other thing to think about, which actually might have a legitimate reason here, is California has some pretty stringent laws on the various types of exotic skins and hides. I wouldn't be surprised if Swatch Group was like, oh my God, we don't want to deal with the state specific paperwork. Put it on rubber. It can go anywhere.
What I would do if I had $735,000 to spend on a double tourbillon is choose something like a strap material that is morally extremely wrong and yet legal. That's what I would do. I think that there's a market for something like that. It's morally wrong straps, but legal.
The Panaristi have you covered there. So
I'm sure they have already tried a path on that.
yes,
Yeah.
if it breathed or lived on this earth, it exists in the form of a 24 millimeter Panerai strap somewhere.
That's true.
So do you think they give him if I said, right, I love the watch, I hate the strap, do you think they give him $100 back that they've spent on
That's what the other $100 is for. That's what the $100
okay.
is for. It all makes so much sense.
What if this watch actually began with a strap, right? They had this like textured rubber and they're like, this is really nice and high end. How can we sell this strap? They're like, hey, I have this idea. Let's take that one movement we've been making forever. It's really expensive. We don't know. We started with the crazy pricing a while ago. Everyone just followed us after that. This is from like the early 2000s when having a orbital dial with 2 tourbillons just like blew people's minds. And again, double tourbillons and all that stuff. It's not that it's been done to death, but like as you can hear, none of us are excited about this from a technical perspective. We
I
just
just
think it
want
looks
to-
pretty.
Does the person in the boutique try and flog this as a sports watch because it's got a rubber strap on it? Mr. Breguet buyer, you have bought every watch.
I think
But
if
have
you
never
wanted it
you've never
without
bought
the
a
strap-
Breguet sports watch.
They would cry a little bit like, we'll give you an alligator strap for free, but please just try this rubber strap. We're so excited about it. Look, we even put our name on the side. I mean, how often does Breguet do that? I mean, look, we've all kind of joked about the fact that brands like Breguet are sort of forced to sit on their hands. They have these very excited product development teams that are literally allowed to do nothing. So once in a while, they'll present what they call the safe new watch, which is really not a new watch. And as long as it looks pretty, they'll get to do it. But I think we can all agree that from a design perspective, Breguet has been in a very odd position over the last decade or so. So when they want to put something together which is really pretty, they're seemingly able to do it when they decide to make, I don't know, whether they can make 4 of these watches or something like that. But for like a main production where there's like a few hundred or a few thousand made, we're not really sure where their minds are at right now.
Rob?
I don't love it myself, but I do think it's a hit for Breguet. It's Breguet from lug to lug at least, and then the strap is amusing, but they do make some nice alternatives that would look wonderful on this kind of thing if that's what you like. But yeah, it's unremarkable. It's a good example of what they do and what they do well, I think.
I think for that price, I'd want an actual alligator. Like, it's probably easier to import an alligator into
A blue
California,
alligator.
slaughter it, and make your own strap.
That could be a
than it is to
whole
import
YouTube
it.
channel you do. I just bought this reptile. Watch me make a watch strap out of it.
Great.
That's
Oh, yes,
semi-legal.
that's-
Endangered straps.
Indeed.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So, yeah. Anyone else wish to comment further on this watch?
Yeah,
And send
don't
your
reckon it was a
alligators
hit.
to Rick. He's got a farm.
Yes.
He's going to process it. He's going to send you a couple of
Yeah,
straps, maybe some gloves.
it.
Who knows?
God. David.
You know, we need you, Rick, to see one of these watches live. I think that might change your mind. Not certainly, but maybe. I think
mean,
it's just the depth, the detail is just incredible.
it's 46 mil, so like it's my size.
Right up your alley.
Right up my alley. But that's where it ends. Has it
And
got
that's just
any
the
noted?
thickness.
Has it got any noted water resistance? Bear in mind, it's got a sports strap on it. I don't know. No, does it even mention water resistance at all?
It resists the idea of water. That's how water resistant it is.
Well, there's what is there? There's a little bit of an engraving of the river on the back there. I think the back of the watch is what we need to comment on, because while the craftsmanship is amazing, I always wonder, like, how did they decide on this particular motif? Like what is this a view of? Like, it's almost semi. It's nice, but also cheesy on the back. I really want to know how this kind of it almost looks like not a very compelling place. It almost is dystopian. It looks like,
Because it's
sad things from the end of the Industrial Revolution.
yes,
or whatever it is.
it's basically infested Paris from the early 1800s. You could just catch some disgusting disease by a leisurely stroll here.
Yeah, like is this a river-proof watch? I hope it is. If it falls in there.
So not, especially not designed in the 1800s. I mean, it's not nothing could things would just melt basically if they touch the water there. I mean, this is I will butcher this, but it's Quai de Rouge, which is where Reggae had set up his workshop in Paris, and that's why it's called that, I think, today. So it's relevant to the brand. It's somewhere in Paris. It still looks the same. It's just less infectious today, a little bit less.
A little bit less. It's moderately less effective. Okay, well, let's say go from one extreme to the entire other extreme. New release, Breitling Endurance Pro 38 watches. This is the Endurance coming down to 38mm Ripley. You had a look at this.
Yeah, so they previously had the I believe it's 44 mil or 42 mil.
44, I think.
Yeah, they're cool watches. They're thermocompensated quartz chronograph movements. Lightweight. Their build is like a multi-purpose sports watch for athletes. Compass bezel, because but that bright light material, there's a lot to like here. The battery life, they say, is only 2 years, which just sort of seems kind of short relative to everything else it has going on for it. But I like the standard full-size ones. They're a bit expensive for what they are, but they're also now kind of the least expensive Breitling models. So now you get them in a 38mm format. Everything's just kind of truncated down. They've got some new colors for the smaller size, like pink and purple. White and light blue already existed before. And this new style of strap with kind of the textured sides that we've seen on like the Super Ocean and other models, it now comes over to this collection, and they've got new versions of a couple colorways for the larger models that now also have this strap. So 38mm version of what we had before.
Okay, let's give it a hit, a miss, or a maybe. 1, 2, 3, go. Maybes all round. Okay. Hey, why is it a maybe for me? I want to know, does it describe itself as friction resistant? Because the original one, I think,
Yes.
used this
Yes.
bizarre phrase, which still no one has managed to explain what friction resistance is in a watch. So until somebody explains that to me, it's still a maybe. Ariel, why is it a maybe for you?
It's just too small. It's not for me. The larger one was a very fun watch. I thought it was very expensive. This is not a particularly high-end watch when it comes to the materials. It looks great. It's very comfortable. I think this is a really fun product. I've always kind of referred to it as Breitling's G-Shock. That's
Or
actually
Victorinox.
that black and white one is one I wore for a while. So I like it a lot. That they're making a smaller one totally makes sense. I mean, it's only a maybe for me because I would wear the larger one. I would like to see a little bit more design evolution, more refinement. But this is where I think Breitling needs to consider the value of having an easy cost of entry. We write about those a lot on the blog to watch with cost of entry. I've always advocated for brands to have some kind of low cost model. What I'm curious about is when the consumer sees this versus the Omega Swatch. Now, we know that there's a world of difference between quality and materials and things like that. I'm just very curious how a consumer who's only seeing those on the internet sees the two different prices, sees the designs, sees that at least on a very basic level, there's very similar materials used and different, similar dial. I just wonder how a consumer sees the Swatch and then this, which is like 10 times the price, I believe. I'd just be very curious to know their reaction.
David?
Yeah, I disagree with you, Ariel, on that. On the these are comfortable. I think the straps are so stiff. The Breitling supplies and these that just constantly just pinch your wrist. At least they didn't on mine. I think
Fair
New
enough.
straps. New
Yeah,
straps
they
for these, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Take the strap off of your $700,000 Breguet and put it on this.
Now you're
well,
talking.
yes, that's a sensible consumer advice. I like it. Yeah, and these are just too expensive for what they are. I mean, I would just get a used Breitling for the same amount made out of real materials with a real movement. It's just too expensive, I think.
Well, here comes Alon. Let's see if... There we go, Alon. You're live on YouTube, and we're just
Hello,
currently doing this-
gentlemen.
just
How are
currently
you?
looking at
Morning.
this little Breitling. So, very quickly, Alon, is this a hit or miss? You know nothing about it. Only this picture. It's 38mm. Hit miss maybe. Yay! We all
Full
voted
house.
maybe. So there we go. Without any adjudication, Alon toes the party line on this. Who are we up to? Rob, were you to give us your opinion next? I think.
Yeah, I like the size and I like the colors. I don't like the strap. I don't like the price. I think the fusion of the quartz movement and the bright light is just too much. I'd like an automatic movement with the bright light or a quartz movement with a titanium case. And that brings me on to my main bugbear. I don't know why Breitling doesn't do anything with the aerospace. They keep hammering this model, which I think is a bit clunky. And I thought Ariel's point about the Moon Swatch, for example, is a great one. I'd never thought about that comparison before, but I own a Moon Swatch. I have no desire to own one of these. I think it's relatively successful for what it's supposed to be. I'm glad Breitling has something at that price point, but it could be a lot better for that money.
Alon, why is it maybe for you?
I love black cases. I love the marbled look of the bright light. But I just jumped in because I saw a few colors passing by. I missed this release completely. But now that you've said about the Moon Swatch, you're so right. So I didn't think about that either. So maybe let's just jump quickly. I don't know if everybody has his turn, but I want to do a hit, miss, or maybe about Rob's mustache.
It has already been commented on, but he wasn't rising to the bait.
The problem
But
is none of us but him can wear it, right? We can't judge it.
That's true. We're
David's got a mustache attached to his beard. You know, he's had one for the last 15 years. I don't know why it's so remarkable, but I can grow one for you all if you want and send it in the mail. I've got plenty of it. It just keeps coming out.
We admire that you've been working on it. Clearly, this was an overnight thing. You've been nurturing this mustache along.
It's only taken a few days. So but I did spend a lot of time, shaping it. I will give you that. Yeah.
The shape, exactly. We can
shape
tell
is-
this is a coiffured mustache if there ever was one. I'm waiting for the little twirly bits on the side, though.
It is possible, but not yet. I wanted to learn how to fly a Spitfire, and I thought this was like the prerequisite, like the starting point. Grow the
It
mustache.
really is.
When
Yeah,
you
the watch.
start competing in the mustache competitions and you have to wear the correct watch, then we'll have some interesting shots.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah.
maybe there's some mileage in the mustache after all. I might keep it for a while.
I think
It's got.
I think,
I'm all about the twirliness. We got to get some twirly things going on there.
yeah, I mean, Breguet, it's just the watch brand for you. Clearly, it's just what we're trying
I'm
to get
so
you into.
confused. It's fine.
David's having some strange emotions.
Yeah. Once you brought reggae into it, that's where I lost track of things. Spitfires, reggae, mustaches. I'm like, what?
We should nickname mustache styles after a watch model or brand, you know? Like you've got a Blanc
great.
Pan mustache, you got a Breguet beard. Like we got to start making some funny terms here.
The double mustache, yeah.
Good. Right. Ripley, you voted
Oh my
maybe.
goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I like the size. I think these watches objectively are cool, short battery life notwithstanding. But as Ariel mentioned, I think there's merit to having a very much entry-level attainable brand. For a
This is not
brand,
it.
yeah, for like a model within a brand's lineup to just be positioned well below the others and be actually a point of entry. And like, let's be real, this and any of their stainless steel, titanium automatic models are worlds apart as far as the type of watch. So it's not like, well, you are getting a Breitling. It's not really like you're getting the same exact thing and they're undercutting themselves too much. They just feel too expensive. You know, if you strip this all back, and you put like Victorinox's name on the dial, this, you know, maybe you wouldn't have a COSC certified super quartz thermocompensated movement, but like, you know, this would be like an $800 watch. You know, so I feel like it's a bit too expensive for what it is. And you know, that's the kind of the only thing preventing it from being a hit in my book.
For a company like Breitling, who stand alone, they're not responsible for anybody else. They don't have anyone to report to other than their own management. Should they produce a watch, maybe based on this case, that is $900? Should they go and produce something that really is entry level, or would that be more damaging than positive? Especially when we see all these moon swatches and all this kind of coming in.
I mean, maybe not that low. They could, but like maybe not that low. But you know, now that the average point for any of their chronographs is like 8-9 grand, having something that would, instead of like, what is this, 3,000, 3,500 or something like that, having something at like 2 grand, you know, $1,500 would make this. You're obviously still paying for the Breitling name, but like, you know, this at $2,000 seems infinitely more palatable when you look at it respective to other things on the market.
Alan? Ariel?
Conversely speaking, you know, Breitling, while they have some of their own stores, is a wholesale brand, and I can see at a $1,000 or $2,000 price point them freaking out because they're like, wait a minute, we have to give a retailer margin and stuff like that. I think they might be wiser just actually increasing the value proposition. I can understand why, for branding reasons and for wholesale reasons, they don't want to go under a $3,000 price point. Now that they have a successful concept, just give more watch for the money. You know what I mean? Keep it around the same price point, but offer more, make it even more difficult for other brands to compete here. Because obviously Breitling's onto something and it's a good segment, but make it even more competitive for the price point as opposed to having the price point go down. I think that would be a more safe move for them.
Alan, you had something to say?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say something to answer your question, and I'm totally with Ariel. They should not go down in price. And back in the day when I was a Breitling dealer, I remember these watches coming out. It was a straight hit immediately, which surprised me because the quartz offering was indeed aerospace, like Rob indicated. They had the B50, if you guys remember. So that was an upgraded aerospace. Those were more pilot watches, but this actually flew off the shelf. It took them by surprise. They couldn't keep up with the demand because the case, they say it's proprietary bright light, but it's made by BIWI, by BIWI, so third party supplier. They couldn't keep up. The moment they linked up with Iron Man, then it really took off, and I really had a lot of triathlon athletes clicking on this watch. But what's very interesting now, I'm not a Breitling dealer anymore. So when the Moon Swatch came out, I don't know what that did to this watch, but guessing by them bringing out more colors, it works for them. And yeah, it works. Obviously, they have a higher margin there with these quartz calibers. And I'm with Ariel. It's their venture capital owned, private equity owned. So they want margin. So this is a cash cow. They shouldn't definitely not go down, and they will not go down in price.
So, as a former dealer, do you know what friction resistance means in these watches?
No idea.
No
They
idea.
simply
Right.
they simply mean when you're doing your triathlon, you won't have burns on your skin. I have no idea.
Right. Okay.
You can
Okay.
just use
Well,
Vaseline.
that sounds like a good enough explanation for me. Right, third watch, and I think we've managed to find three watches that are so far on opposite ends of the spectrum with each other. From the Breguet, the Breitling, and this. The H. Moser and C. Pioneer Center Seconds Concept Citrus Green. It's basically a green watch Moser Pioneer. There's not a lot else to say about it other than that. I think you're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. So let's ask that question. Is this a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit, maybe, maybe, maybe. No misses. Ariel, why is it a maybe?
Well, the overall Pioneer case I like. It was one of the brand's first sort of combinations of sport and elegance, which is a theme that I like a lot. I think the detailing in the case is interesting, and I like the idea of a handsome looking ornate timepiece that's meant for sort of daily sporty wear. I don't like the elements of this that tie it into their other watches, which is no hands. I'm sorry, no markers, just hands. I'm not in love with
Although,
the color
they do make
combination.
that as well.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not in love with the colors or the combination there. So this one isn't for me, but I do think that the Pioneer collection overall, when it does actually look like a sport watch, I mean, you can read the time and looks more like a tool and instrument, it is compelling. But again, that's the brand. They come up with interesting colors and things like that. They experiment. It's for somebody, but it's not for me.
David, is it for you?
Well, it's a maybe. You have to have a lot of money to throw at something like this. The more I look at it, the more I like it, which is just as well as it should be for something like this. It's a tiny little bit rough around some of the edges. Some of these flutings or knurlings or whatever, especially on the inside of the case. It's some places on a movement, but then again, you get relatively uninspired, ugly-looking movements from big brands for 15K. So it's not the end of the world. It's an impressive or interesting, I should say, interesting-looking movement. Great colors. I love the color scheme. I love the execution on those. So it's just a maybe for me. I would have to put it on, and maybe it would be a love at first sight in the metal.
Rob?
I think we're having a rough day on the strap front, to be honest. I'm not sure why they couldn't have color matched this one a little better. I think the bracelet's okay. The strap and the dial together is very summery. I'll give you that. It's a lot of fun, but I think it would have looked a little more elegant and complete with a.
Oh, Rob has faded away there. We lost the last sentence.
Different.
So-
The Schofield Black Lamp-esque loom ring is an interesting element as well. The movement's amazing. Case finishing, like David said, yeah, could be better. But yeah, it's a lot of money for a fun watch. I think I'd probably go for a Zodiac if I wanted the same kind of vibe.
Alan, what strap would you swap this one out for? What would you put on it instead?
At this price point, they could have done tono, I think. I mean, they could have had them produced in 100 or 300 pieces. I don't know. So the blue also threw me off a bit. But it was a hit for me. Moser can't do much wrong with me. I like almost everything. The pilots are not really my cup of tea, but I love the fact that it's a minimal dial. They didn't even do the lacquered logo on this one. I love the Endeavor. It's a great entry-level price point for Moser. Still a lot of money, but I like it, and I like that they pivot away from the icy, smoky dials, and they carved a new niche. Although that being said, it did give me a bit of Oris Kermit vibes. So I hope that in real life it's very citrusy green. So and I don't think it really works on the steel bracelet, this dial color. But imagine this with a nice Venta black dial and the steel bracelet. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I know. I liked it. I like it.
Enough,
I like the
enough to put
bracelet.
your Panerai down finally.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, we'll do this quickly. We'll do this quickly because we didn't do it at the start of the show because you weren't on as to the quick wrist strike. Because I'm not wearing a Panerai. Heavens to
Wow.
Murgatroyds. Ariel, I'll do the great reveal in a moment. If for those who have not already spotted it, Ariel, what are you wearing?
Because I'm in a German-speaking part of the world that has some history with this. This is a Laco. This is their new DIN pilot's watch. Very, very cool one, and it does remind me that the city was more or less destroyed in World War II.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, happy thoughts. I don't know. Bring that on. Linking things. David, what's on your desk? Oh,
It's on my wrist actually. Yeah, it's a Super Steve Wolf GMT.
Up. We don't see it.
Ready for the weekend and ready for the summer basically. This is good, isn't
Excellent.
it? Very cool.
Ah, the
It's
flamingo
Tuesday.
dial.
It's
Yes.
Tuesday and he's ready for the weekend, David.
Yeah. On a Tuesday.
Two-day week. Rob, what are you wearing?
I've got the original Nomos Club Campus, actually. So
Oh,
nice and basic.
good. So is that the one where they've just released the 31 different colors that we released last week?
No.
Last
No.
week.
That
That's
was
for the
not
college
really
graduates. You
I've-
going back for another degree, Rob?
I could do with one. I've actually got one of the 38mm dates that they did release a couple of weeks ago. I got the pink one, the chili. Goes well with the mustache. So
Alon, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing the third collab Ace did with Nevada Gentian, F77, the Amsterdam edition. The 3Xs are back again.
Go, very nice.
Thank you.
Nice looking watch. Ripley.
The recently released Delma Midland collection, integrated bracelet. It's kind of inspired by something they did in the 80s, and it's positioned near the entry point of their collection.
Good. And I am wearing this, the Bell and Ross ceramic that
Wow.
we reviewed last week. A challenge to wear it for a fortnight rather than a Panerai. I have to say, I'm really liking it. If I didn't wear
nice,
a
right?
Panerai, it is very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice indeed. I highly recommend it. It has survived farm life so far. I don't know if the dear reps at Bell and Ross realise the abuse that this watch is going to get, but you know.
Well,
they
thanks
were
for telling
prepared
them.
they were prepared to take on the challenge that a ceramic dive watch could survive farming and building site life here in Scotland. So we're putting it through its paces. But yeah, very impressed with it. Only thing it's not that I don't like about it, but that I would change is the loom. There's a lot of loom on this watch, almost to the extent that it makes it slightly unreadable because everything's just lit up. And because there's no numerals on it, it's like, unless you know which way's up or you haven't fiddled with
The first time in
the-
history
the
someone's
crown.
complained about too much loom. I like
Too much.
that.
It's just, I think it's just the loom in my Panerai is just so straightforward.
You realize there's a version of that same watch with even more loom, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, in the whole
You
face
could
is
spend
loomed
like
as well.
$400 more. Why it costs $400 more to do a loom? I don't understand. But that's fine. The second highest loom one, is it too much loom for you?
Too much loom. I think Panerai's just right, just the sweet spot. But anyway, very much enjoying this Bell and Ross. It has surprised me. Very, very comfy, and the Panerai is a comfortable watch, but this is equally, if not even slightly more comfortable, just because it's not as heavy. But there we go. Anyway, back to Moser. Where were we up to? Who was the last person to speak to? I can't remember now. Who said? Who's not weighed in yet?
I haven't weighed in. I said it's a
Yeah.
maybe. Cool looking watch. This is definitely one of those dials you have to see in the metal. If you just wanted something green and playful, you know, like mentioned, the Oris Kermit is kind of right in that same niche, and you can get other things that hit the same thing. Now, obviously, this is going to be done at a much higher level. Just look at the movement, but you know, unless I'd have to see it in person, and ultimately, it's a lot of money to spend on something that's never going to be a consistent everyday watch in your rotation, just due to how flagrant that dial color is. But it's very nice looking, and that blue strap almost looks like it was just grabbed out of the bin and thrown on it, you know, for at the last minute.
Yeah, so it's been one of those weeks in terms of watches that look like they've just had the straps thrown on them from Breguet now to Moser. So as we finish the show, we're going to, if I can find the Breguet article again, so I can display it. I think I'm going to ask David the question: is it going to be this Breguet? Oh, it's going to be my phone ringing. That's what it's going to be. Need to get rid of that. Is it going to be this Breguet, or is it going to be an F91W and the cash? You have to wear the Breguet for a year, or the F91 and the cash for lifetime. That's it. One
Too
watch
much
and
cash.
done.
I will just take the cash
You
and
just
buy
take the
this
cash.
20 off. I'm pretty sure it's on Java Shop somewhere. I'm sure you can find one from the early 2000s.
Good. With a better strap on it. Like, what was the previous strap on this watch? If it's been done so
Some
many
leather
times before?
thing.
Just leather thing. Good. And I think, just to be fair, we should play hit miss maybe on Rob's moustache just as we conclude the show. So,
Oh.
is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? I do. He's a
Okay, all
He's a
right.
fine looking. He's a fine looking man.
You look kind of like Jason Sudeikis in the what's the one where he's a
that's-
soccer. Yeah. You know what I'm talking
Ted
about.
Lasso.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that's definitely double hit then.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
it. Rob shall.
Rob, I'm a
henceforth be
bit
known
sorry about
as
all this,
Ted.
but you did grow the mustache after all.
I know. I
It's
did
on
get
your
it.
face. People have to comment, I guess.
I
Oh, if
guess
you're gonna
so.
name it after a watch, it would definitely be one of the William Wood firefighter watches. This just screams firefighter to me.
Maybe I should call Johnny and get an advertising contract. Finally.
Good stuff. Well, that's our show for this week. Thank you all very much for joining us. We will speak to you again in a week or so's time. Goodbye.